Okay, people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Tonight, I'm going to take a look at the Nightmare Before Christmas Select line. Oddly enough, I walk into Hastings on Halloween Day, and they had the whole series just sitting there, which is kind of cool. I didn't even know they were coming out. I've been up Star Wars butt so much lately that I've been kind of lagging behind on other lines. So, this was kind of out of left field. I didn't know much about it. My whole family is a big fan of this movie. You get Jack, you get Sally, and you get Oogie Boogie, which is a fine start to a line. You know, I would like to see more other characters and such, but this is a good start. Now, initial thoughts, right in the package, as I was standing in Hastings, I was looking at them. The joints in Jack's arms and legs look kind of small. I'm kind of worried when I get them out of the package, so I'm going to have to be careful. I don't know if I'll have to be careful, but I'm going to be careful, you know? There's nothing worse than opening a package and then the figure breaking right out of the, you know, right after opening them. So, gonna have to be careful with that. The other thing I noticed is Jack in the package, his head sculpt is a little bit different than the back. In the package, on the actual figure, he's got kind of, you know, mean eyes, evil looking, he's thinking bad thoughts. But on the back of the package, it's kind of that, you know, Jack in wonder, kind of happy, wide-eyed. So I don't know if there are variants for at least Jack, but when I found it in store, it seemed like it was a whole case. It was one Jack, two Oogie Boogies, and two Sallys. There may have been a Jack that I missed. I may have to track that down later. For Sally, looking at the package, she has a knelt-down extra lower body, and that's cool. The dress hinders the articulation there if you want her crouched down or sitting. Interchangeable is the way to go. That's kind of cool. The back of Oogie Boogie's package shows that his face comes off and it shows the worms and the slugs and that kind of thing. But the biggest thing for me when I picked up this package is this is heavy. Just one big solid chunk of plastic. Now, he doesn't come with a base, but because of his size and his girth, the weight, I can understand why it didn't come with a base. Just to give you an idea of how heavy it is, if you remember Abomination in the package, you picked it up off the shelf, ugh, it was heavy. And at least personally, I saw some where the plastic was ripping off the card back because of the weight of the figure. And Diamond thought of this and added this kind of clip with a zip tie to keep the plastic to the card back. So that's cool. No figures just, you know, loose. There's nothing worse than seeing a package that's already been opened, so you wonder if there's something wrong with it. But no worries here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and rip these open and see what's inside. And there we go, out of the package. And I really have mixed feelings here. I'm not quite sure what I was expecting. I think what it comes down to is these are not so much action figures as they are articulated statues. And by that I mean Jack has quite a bit of articulation. It's just not all completely useful, especially how thin he is. He's not going to stand by himself. You're pretty much going to have to pick a pose and then just either leave him there or, you know, come back the next day, change up your display, whatever. You can move him around. He's articulated. It's just not gonna, it's not very play friendly. With Sally, she has articulation, it's hindered. Oogie Boogie, he has a little articulation, but it's just not really useful. And I think it comes down to the designs more than anything. They're just not made to be super articulated, you know what I mean? And saying that, the sculpts are fantastic. Just, especially Oogie Boogie, just the texture on him, it's just like burlap sack. The stitches, just everything about him. He may be my favorite. And that's not to take anything away from Jack or Sally. Sally, her hair is sculpted in. It's not just a paint on it. The design work on her dress is all sculpted in. And Jack, the pinstripes are sculpted. Just everything about him visually is amazing. Now, I'm glad they decided to include a stand with both Jack and Sally because they cannot stand up by themselves. Jack, obviously, I mean, these are just very thin twigs of limbs, and that's accurate. Although looking at this and what I have in my head of what Jack is supposed to look like, the legs may be a little long, he may be a little thin, arms a little long, but there's no denying this is Jack. The peg fits really tight into the hole in the back, almost a little too tight. You can't really get it in there too deep. But the stand has lots of joints. You can tighten these if they get loose. There's screws in the side of them. Jointed here, it swivels at each joint. You can swivel here, you can swivel here, and you can take them apart in any configuration you want, you know, and bring this down to here if you want a shorter stand. It's just a nifty stand. And it worked out. At first I had Sally off the front of it before I realized you could take this apart. But I just took out this joint for hers, and she can stand on her base, and it's a lot more centered than it was. Now, like I said, the head of Jack is different than what's pictured on the back of the box and in promotional pictures. This isn't bad, but the more I look at it, the more I would like to have his more happy face with the wider eyes. And for articulation, he's got a ball at the top of his neck. The neck itself is kind of flimsy. I don't feel like it's going to break, but when I got it out of the package, the head was stuck, and I just kind of worked it around until it came loose. He's got some range of movement. He's got some side to side. He's got some up, and he has some down. I mean, it's not the greatest, but it'll work. And pretty much every other joint in the body is a hinge and swivel. You can hinge it out because there's a swivel on both the inside and outside. As you can see, if I can get it off, none of the pegs are mushroomed, so you can just pull the joints out, and there's a swivel on both sides. So hinge and swivel with a swivel. You can hinge out, it goes around. Same with the elbow. There's a hinge here, and it swivels. The waist is a swivel. It's kind of hard to get to because of the tail of the coat, but it swivels here, and it's a ball joint, so you can go around. Now, we get to the hips. The hips are the same setup. You have the pegs that you can just pull out center and swivel on both sides, except for mine on the right hip wouldn't swivel. Everything was messed up, and when I tried to swivel it, it broke off right here. I knew that would be a risk, how small these joints are. I ended up having to glue it back together. It was just so small I couldn't rebuild another one. And this hip kind of sits down lower than the other. I think it's because the peg here is longer. I don't know if that had anything to do with the breakage, but I can't hinge forward with this leg anymore. For pictures I've gotten around it, I haven't really had to bend his leg at that hip. This one you can peg forward, so you can put him in running poses. It still works for what I want it for, just to, you know, have on the shelf displayed nicely. But it's kind of a bummer that that doesn't hinge anymore. Same thing at the knees. You have the hinge, you have the swivel. There's a swivel at the ankle, but no hinge, and nothing at the wrist. Jack does come with this base. I like this base. There's no color to it. Maybe a dark gray on top. But mostly it's cast in this color, which reflects light well. It's kind of a grayish, kind of metallic. And it stands out. It's accurate. I like it. The back, these hollow pieces here, but it has some heft to it. And you can take your figure stand, take it out of this round base, plug it into here, and then have Jack standing on the base. And to give you a little size comparison, here he is with Black Panther, who is always right here with me. Now for Sally, like I said, I took down her base a notch. She stands nicely here. What I like to do is leave that in her back. It just comes off the stand like that, because her hair kind of gets in the way when you're trying to shove that in there. But this doesn't get in the way whenever you're trying to pose her. But she's ball jointed at the head. She gets good side to side, good down, good up. I notice when I try to pose her sometimes, though, the neck bends. I hinge and swivel at the shoulder, but she only gets up this far. She's got the same kind of ball joint as Jack at the elbow. It's hinged and it swivels, but she can only get this far with the bend. She gets back more than she gets forward. She has a swivel at the waist, which comes into play in a minute. I'm not sure if there's anything up under the dress at her hips, because this dress is just a hard piece. There's no give to it. There's maybe a little, there may be a hinge up there or swivel, but I don't know. She has the same kind of ball joints at the knee, kind of a hinge and swivel, as you can see. And it gets good range, but because of it going up in the socket and because of the dress, she can only bend this far. So kind of useless. And then a swivel at the ankle. She also has swivels at the wrist. So fairly limited. She'll look good just standing there. But what saves this figure is it comes with an attachment for her to sit on the ground. So this pops off really easy. And she pops right onto this base. It goes on a little tighter on here. And this looks good. I like her sitting like this. But the problem comes in when you try to seat her. She doesn't sit. It works if you prop her up on her hand, kinda. So again, here comes the base. And her base is nice too. It's nicely sculpted. It's in the same colors as Jack's. It has 2 peg holes here to put the base stand in. But I prefer this right here. The wall holds her up. She can look out. I kind of like this. This cat is a separate piece. And on the back of the package, it shows it standing right here. There's no hole there, and this is kind of a flat peg. The only flat peg hole is right here. The back, kind of hollow, not much to it, but it's a nice base, especially when you get the 2 bases together. It's kind of it kind of gives some depth to the display. And last but not least is Oogie Boogie. Now this may be my favorite of the set, but the least useful. And that's kind of odd to say, but let me show you. This thing is heavy. It's solid. The top is hollow, it seems, because I've got a rattle piece. I don't know if I broke something, because after I started moving the articulation, it got looser here. So I may have done that, but it hasn't come apart, which I don't want to go cranking on it. There's no articulation below the waist. And his feet are kind of splayed out like he's stepping forward. But he's got kind of that slide dance move type thing. I can live with this. There's a lot of paint here. There's a dry brush of lighter brown, kind of a white, over it to just bring the texture out. And then there's the darker brown for the stitches here. It's almost a glossy. And it just stands out. This is just a fantastic piece. Now for articulation, what there's a waist. You can turn, and you get a little bit of movement side to side and up and down. I don't know if that's supposed to be a ball joint of some kind, but it just works as a swivel. The head, the same way. You can swivel it back and forth. And there is a slight side to side here. I don't know what kind of joint that is. It wants to move like this. And then the arms that you can see right there, hinge and swivel. You can swivel it forward, back, and then turn it. Same here. Kind of tough, but it does move. You can get some personality out of them just by, the slight movements. So it works. I don't know why I'm fascinated by this figure. It just, I want another one for the car or, sitting on my machine at work. It's just kind of cool. Oogie Boogie doesn't come with a base. It's just him by himself. And now, he is a large figure. He's heavy. I can see why a base wasn't put in. But he does come with an action feature, I guess you could call it. Face comes off, and then there's the bugs and the maggots and slugs and what have you. You can kind of see a seam line whenever you have it on, but it's not terrible. So at the end of the day, this isn't bad for 24 or 25 bucks a piece. You know, the weight of the bases, the weight of the Oogie Boogie, each one feels like they're worth it, but don't go buying these expecting action figures. What we're used to anyway. These are display pieces. Definitely. I mean, the paint's nice. The sculpts are really nice. Jack may be slightly out of proportion, but he's still recognizable as Jack. And it's the same with Sally, and definitely Oogie Boogie. Never thought I'd say Oogie Boogie this many times in one day. So, yeah, I recommend these. These are display pieces. You're going to put them on a shelf. You're going to admire them from afar. You're going to change the poses every now and then, but for the most part, they're just going to stay like they are. Except Oogie Boogie. He's going to ride around in my car. So, if you like the review, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the Fwoosh.